And we are live with the third episode of the podcast series entitled Everything You Wanted to Know About Self-Leadership But Were Afraid to Ask. At least I think that's what it's called. In this episode, I wanted to talk about the protective factors. I've been talking about these protective factors recently, and I thought I would put in a little bit more detail. What I mean by protective factors is possibly best described, or at least the description begun, by talking about the weather. At this time of year, many of us are experiencing inclement weather. It's a bit challenging, and sometimes people get injured, and worse, property gets damaged. So that extreme weather we want to stay out of, if at all possible. But there can be a storm where it's windy and cold and we've got to do things outdoors. We've just got to work outdoors, or indeed enjoy the outdoors. If we do that, what are we advised to do? If we want to go and do that thing outdoors for an extended period of time in inclement weather, what are we encouraged to do? Well, many things. Tell someone where you're going, of course. Make sure you can be contactable if at all possible. But in the middle of that advice is something you've probably heard of before. And that is that we are encouraged to put layers of clothing on. Not just rely on a t-shirt and a jacket. Again, depending on the weather conditions. And that layering effect, I also consider to be important for us psychologically, because each and every one of us, pretty much each and every one of us, will have faced, maybe facing, and will almost certainly face in the future, a different kind of storm, a different type of storm. A psychological storm, an emotional storm. And when that happens, we, as far as we possibly can, should attempt to ensure that we have some level of protection. And that type of protection is not clothing, but it is things that we can put in our lives. And this will not make us indestructible. This will not make us able to go out in particularly bad weather. Maybe there's a tree being blown down. I mean, that's extraordinarily dangerous. So we would not want to do that. We want to heed those weather warnings. But a storm which is uncomfortable eventually with those layers on, a storm which is still workable within with those layers on, is kind of what I'm talking about. And the psychological equivalent is not some tragic events, not some life and death thing. Instead, I'm talking about those issues where it can be challenging for us. It can knock us back. It can sometimes drop us to the floor because, oh wow, what on earth is happening here? But we've got to pick ourselves back up. And sometimes, even though we pick ourselves back up, we find it harder to function. So one of the ways that can allow us, it can enable us to function, is to have these so-called protective factors in place. So, of course, you're probably thinking, well, get on with it. What are they? This list is not exhaustive. I'm going to pick a handful, and in no particular order, I'll go with meaning to begin. So meaning, if we feel that our lives are meaningful, if we envisage that what we're actually doing does make a positive difference, then we tend to find that we have meaning. We're doing something for other people often. That can give us meaning. We're helping people. We're teaching people. We're supporting people. We are working hard for someone with an output which we agree with. Our lives will tend to have meaning when we agree with the outputs of whatever it is we do, whatever it is we're part of. And meaning in our lives is really important. If you can imagine then a storm, this time the emotional storm, the challenges is going on, but we have a sense of meaning that can help us get through that storm. It can help us exist, perhaps even thrive, at least for a while, in that storm. Now, a close cousin of meaning is purpose. to have purpose in our lives, something that prompts us, that motivates us to get out of bed in the morning, because we know we have these things to do, and it is aligned as often as not with a goal or goals. So we're goal focused. That is our purpose. But as I've suggested, it's a close cousin of meaning. And it is possible to have purpose and to be goal focused and not to attach too much meaning from it. We may get our meaning from something else. Maybe the goal is connected to a hobby, but it doesn't give us much meaning. Although if it was a good hobby, I'd suggest it would. And the meaning is from being a parent in our lives, or a son, a daughter, a cousin, a family member, a good work colleague, whatever. But as often as not, and I'd suggest really is likely to be the most powerful combination for us, is that the meaning and the purpose are connected. So that goal that we jump out of bed to begin to achieve in the morning is connected also to giving us meaning. Everyone's different. I can't tell you how you would generate meaning, but what I would encourage you to think about is, does your life feel meaningful enough? If it doesn't, you'll kind of notice that hollowness. And what can you do to put something in place, or some things in place, to ensure you've got meaning? And again, that may be connected to purpose, that would give you a sense of purpose. Also, in terms of the protective factors, I would suggest that hope is extremely important. If we're hopeful, if there's even just a glimmer of something there, that can keep us going. It's like the fuel, it's like the energy, it's like the reserves that we can pull on to help us get through this particular situation, whatever it may be. And so having hope is, I just think, one of the most important things in our lives. Some people suggest it is the most important thing. Alongside meaning and purpose and hope, I would say belonging. A sense of community, a sense of being involved with other people, often to create a common outcome, certainly with common interests. And sometimes that sense of belonging can also give us a sense of being connected to something bigger, which can be really beneficial to many of us. So that community, that belonging, could be from the PTA, it could be from the chess club, it could be from the model airplane construction and flying club, whatever. These communities, these things, these groups that give us a sense of connection and belonging, again, like all of us, they can be really different. But if you've got that sense of it, you know it when it's there. And lastly, in terms of this quick canter over some of these protective factors, I would suggest that friends, at least one friend, preferably a group of friends, real friends, people you can rely on in a crisis, people who aren't there just trying to look good in front of someone, pretending to be your friend, people who you know you could trust when you turned your back on them, friends who were not political, they had no agenda beyond enjoying your company, enjoy hanging out with you, and I think often importantly also having a laugh. So that group of friends that when the going gets tough and we're knocked back a little bit, they're there, they soften the blow, they talk to us, they get us away from that slightly myopic thinking. We're focused so much on the problem or the hurt or the issue. They can help us see things from different perspectives, begin to take that narrow, focused and sometimes an anxiety-filled and stressful thinking and broaden it out to look at the bigger picture, which is so important for many of us in those situations when it is stressful. And so, imagine then that with those protective factors of meaning and purpose and belonging and hope and friends, how much easier it will be if we make sure that we put them in place going forward to face that storm, to work within it, to function within it, potentially even to thrive within it. And I would encourage you to consider those areas of your life that I've just mentioned. Those factors, how are they? Have some things changed? Have some things dissipated? Have some people moved on? Has that left a vacuum? Has it left a greyish area that used to be colourful? And what you want now is you should say, you possibly need to make sure that those things, whatever they may be, are replaced. The friends, the group, the belonging, that hope. Sometimes that hope can come from talking to other people. I'd suggest that the protective factors I've just talked about are all connected, not just meaning and purpose, they're all connected. Meaning and purpose is easier, I think, to find, to access, to go for if we have hope. And if we have a sense of belonging and encouragement, we feel less isolated in that storm. And if we have friends, close friends, who we can be very open with and discuss our, how would I describe it? Our real worries, what's really going on, what is actually happening behind the scene that maybe we don't feel comfortable enough to talk to other people, that again can open up so many avenues and ways that we can find support and solace. And then imagine, just to finish off, to make the point, you're in that storm. It is that emotional, that psychological storm, and you're trying to find a way through it. Imagine you were trying to do that without meaning, without purpose, without hope, without belonging, and without friends. You can obviously see that that's likely to be a bigger challenge. So if you are going through that storm and those things are in scant supply, then generate a plan. Find ways to seek that out. And if you're between storms, then do a little checklist and have a look at your protective factors, or these ones that I've mentioned and any other ones, of course, that you come up with, and consider whether you need to do a little bit of more work on them, because those storms will absolutely return at some point. Anyway, for the moment, from me, bye for now.